A federal judge in Florida will unseal a more detailed inventory of items seized during the FBI's search of former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. Yesterday, the judge heard arguments from the Justice Department and Trump's lawyers over the request to appoint a neutral third party to review the evidence seized. The judge ended the hearing without a ruling on the matter, only saying she would issue a written order, quote, in due course. CBS News Homeland Security and Justice reporter Nicole Sganga was in the courtroom yesterday working hard on this story. She joins me now from West Palm Beach, Florida. So, Nicole, tell us about what both sides were arguing.
Debra, good to be with you again. Fiery arguments from both sides of the courtroom and heavy skepticism from this judge. I do want to share a few snippets with our viewers to show how both sides reframed the matter at hand. Chris Keiss, lawyer for the former president, saying, quote, "What we are talking about are presidential records used by a former president, used at a location he visited frequently in office." Of course, that a reference to Mar-a-Lago. Now, Jay Bratt, government counsel, rebutting, quote, "Trump is no longer president, and because he is no longer president, he should not have taken those documents." Of course, what we are talking about is whether or not a special master, an outside neutral expert, should be brought in to review the documents seized by the FBI for any sort of special privilege. The Department of Justice saying here it could delay their work. And furthermore, the FBI's special privilege team already segregated 64 sets of materials from the documents taken from the former president's office, identified those as being potentially protected by attorney-client privilege. So the work there is done. Team Trump saying not so fast. Their words, not everyone trusts the government to do this job. And furthermore, Team Trump arguing that they would like a special master to look at all the documents, not just those taken from the former president's office. And they would like them looked at for both attorney-client privilege as well as executive privilege.
So, Nicole, let me ask you this. Former Trump counsel Pat Cipollone expected to testify, right, today before a federal grand jury investigating the January 6th attack. Make us smart about what's significant about this, what it could mean for the Justice Department's investigation into January 6th.
Yeah, Pat Cipollone, Pat Philbin, two top lawyers under the Trump administration, and both of them high-profile, highly knowledgeable witnesses to what went down in the White House in the months leading up to January 6th. Two of the most high-profile witnesses to come before the federal grand jury. We know, of course, the Justice Department is currently probing for information regarding the Capitol insurrection, but they're also looking into a possible disruptions by the former president and his allies to the 2020 presidential election. We know in the case of Cipollone, based on snippets we've heard of his testimony before the January 6th Select Committee, that he pushed back hard. He says he was quite opposed to efforts by the former president to try to overturn the 2020 presidential election. So his testimony could be significant, could be meaningful to the Department of Justice's ongoing case and investigation here.
And Nicole, the House Select Committee, so much going on here, is investigating January 6th. They have asked former House Speaker Newt Gingrich now to sit down for a voluntary interview. So how is he responding?
Yeah, our colleague, Robert Costa, got that exclusive telephone call with Newt Gingrich following that announcement. He called it a publicity stunt. He likened it to a, quote, Stalinist show trial. Now, for their part, the Select January 6th committee saying they have emails from the former House GOP speaker, emails with a senior advisor to former President Trump, Jared Kushner, Jason Miller, who, of course, was a campaign advisor, and that they would like to ask Gingrich about alleged involvement in, quote, a scheme to overturn the 2020 election. Now, Gingrich told Bob Costa that he'd consult with his lawyers regarding his decision to cooperate or not.
So much going on. We're going to hit you up for one more question, Nicole. Turning to the grand jury investigation in Georgia, yet another case here. A federal judge yesterday ordering South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham to testify with a limited scope. So how much trouble does that probe pose for former President Trump?
Yeah, so Graham must testify before a Georgia grand jury. This is regarding an investigation of possible attempts by the former president and his allies to disrupt that state's 2020 elections. A lot to keep track of here, but we're specifically talking about Georgia in this case, and it is considered a reasonable and a significant threat to the former president. Now, the judge in this case has limited the sort of range of questions that could be posed to the senator. That's due to something called the speech and debate clause that basically shields lawmakers from some questioning and some prosecution based on actions they're meant to do on the job. But this is not the final word here, Deborah, and I want our viewers to know that this will likely be reviewed by a court of appeals. In fact, it could make its way all the way before the Supreme Court.
A lot to unpack and a lot to juggle, and you're doing a great job, Nicole Sganga. Thank you so much for keeping us smart on that.
Thank you, Deborah.